Henri Dupont, a successful black entrepreneur in Paris, was accustomed to facing challenges. His company, one of the most promising tech startups in Europe, had recently closed a multi-million-dollar deal. That day, Henri was particularly excited. He wore an impeccable Italian-cut suit, and a confident smile lit up his face as he entered the luxurious bank where he held his corporate account. The bank's main hall was imposing, with crystal chandeliers hanging from the high ceiling and walls adorned with classical artworks. Lines of customers were attended to by tellers behind marble counters. Henri joined one of the lines, observing the activity around him. Approaching the counter, he was served by Sophie Martel, a teller who seemed to be having a bad day. Sophie, a middle-aged white woman, looked at Henri with a mixture of disdain and suspicion. Her blonde hair was tightly pulled back into a bun, and she wore the bank's uniform with almost military precision. "How can I help you?" Sophie asked, not even attempting to hide the cold tone in her voice. "I'd like to make a significant deposit into my corporate account," Henri replied, maintaining his composure. He handed her a check, aware that the amount was substantial. Sophie took the check, but her expression immediately changed upon seeing the amount. "I need to verify some information. One moment, please." Without looking at Henri, she turned and began typing furiously on the computer. Henri noticed the curious glances from other customers and employees. He was used to this, but never stopped feeling a certain discomfort. After a few minutes, Sophie returned, now with an even more suspicious look. "Could you please present an ID?" she asked, with exaggerated emphasis, as if doubting Henri's legitimacy. Henri handed over his ID with a calm smile, but his patience was beginning to wear thin. Sophie examined the ID meticulously, as if expecting to find something wrong. "Unfortunately, I'll need you to wait while I perform more checks," she said, before walking away to speak with a colleague. Henri could hear whispers and see looks being exchanged among the staff. He was being clearly treated differently, and it was frustrating. After what seemed like an eternity, a manager approached. He was a tall, middle-aged man with graying hair and thin glasses. He had a serious expression on his face. "Mr. Dupont, I'm the branch manager, Michel Legrand. I'd like to speak with you in my office, please," he said, gesturing for Henri to follow. Henri nodded and followed the manager, leaving Sophie behind with a barely concealed look of triumph. The manager's office was luxurious, with dark wood furniture and an impressive view of the city. Michel closed the door behind him and offered Henri a chair. "Mr. Dupont, I apologize for the inconvenience. Unfortunately, we've had some technical issues and need to confirm some information before processing your deposit," Michel explained, trying to sound diplomatic. Henri felt his irritation growing but kept his composure. "I understand the need for security, but the way I was treated was extremely disrespectful. I hope this isn't common practice at this branch." Michel looked uncomfortable. "Absolutely not, Mr. Dupont. We'll resolve this immediately. And please accept my apologies on behalf of the bank." After a series of phone calls and checks, the deposit was finally processed. Henri left the manager's office with a mix of relief and frustration. He knew that despite the apologies, the prejudice he faced wasn't an isolated incident. Returning to the main hall, he exchanged glances with Sophie once more. She seemed surprised to see him leaving the manager's office. Henri just nodded and headed for the exit, determined not to let the incident go unnoticed. Henri left the bank with renewed determination. He would not only confront prejudice, but also seek ways to turn it into an opportunity for change. The story was just beginning, and he knew the road would be long and challenging, but he was ready to face it. After the incident at the bank, Henri Dupont couldn't stop thinking about the humiliating treatment he had received. As a successful entrepreneur, he knew he had the voice and influence to do something about it. Determined not to let the situation go unnoticed, he began preparing his approach to formally and forcefully bring the incident to the bank's management. The next morning, Henri entered his office located in one of the most modern skyscrapers in Paris. The panoramic view of the city stretched as far as the eye could see, but it couldn't ease his agitated mind. He sat at his mahogany desk, surrounded by walls decorated with diplomas, certificates of recognition, and various photographs of corporate and family events. "Jules, I need to speak with you urgently," Henri said over the phone, Calling his personal assistant, Jules, a dynamic and perceptive young man, entered the office within minutes, carrying a notebook and wearing a focused expression. "Yes, Mr. Dupont. How can I help?" Henri took a deep breath and explained the incident at the bank, detailing every moment of discrimination he had suffered. Jules listened intently, taking notes and silently expressing his indignation. When Henri finished, Jules was ready to act. "We'll draft a formal letter to the bank's management, detailing the incident in full. Additionally, we'll schedule a meeting with the board to discuss this personally. I also think it's important to involve our legal department to ensure we're covered in case the situation escalates," Jules suggested firmly. Henri nodded, appreciating his assistant's diligence. "Excellent idea, Jules. Let's move forward with this. We can't let such behavior go unpunished." The letter was drafted precisely, detailing not only the incident but also emphasizing the urgent need for changes in the bank's policies regarding diversity and inclusion. The meeting was scheduled for the following week, and Henri spent the ensuing days meticulously preparing for the encounter. When the day of the meeting arrived, Henri entered the bank's headquarters with renewed confidence. The building was grand, with a glass facade reflecting the blue sky of Paris. He was greeted by an assistant who led him to a meeting room on the top floor. The meeting room was impressive, with a long polished oak table, leather chairs, and a huge window offering a panoramic view of the city. Seated around the table were the bank's top executives, including the CEO, Philippe Durant, a man with a stern appearance and authoritative demeanor. "Mr. Dupont, thank you for coming. We're here to hear your concerns," Philippe began, with a tone that attempted to be conciliatory. Henri began by recounting the incident, describing every detail precisely. He spoke about Sophie Martel's prejudiced attitude and the discomfort he felt being treated differently because of his color. As he spoke, he could see the growing unease on the executives' faces. "It's unacceptable that in the 21st century we still have to deal with such attitudes in an environment that should be professional and welcoming to all," Henri said firmly. "I expect immediate action to correct this and prevent others from going through what I did." Philippe Durant seemed uncomfortable, but knew Henri was right. "Mr. Dupont, we deeply regret what happened. This behavior does not reflect the values of our bank. We will take immediate steps to resolve this situation and ensure it does not happen again." Henri continued to press. "I'm not here just to hear apologies. I want to see real changes. I propose the bank implement a diversity and inclusion awareness program, and I'm willing to help as an ambassador for this initiative." Henri's proposal was met with surprise, but also recognition of its importance. After a brief discussion among the executives, Philippe agreed. "Mr. Dupont, we accept your proposal. We will immediately start an awareness program and would very much like to have your experience and leadership as an ambassador for this initiative." With that, the meeting ended, but Henri knew this was just the beginning of a long journey. He left the bank not only with the satisfaction of being heard, but with the responsibility of leading significant change in the institution's corporate culture. Sophie Martel was anxious. After the incident with Henri Dupont, she learned she would be called for a meeting with the bank's top management. She hadn't been able to sleep properly since then, fearing the possible consequences of her actions. She woke up early that day, getting ready more carefully than usual, trying to convey an appearance of professionalism that had ironically been lacking when she attended to Henri. Upon arriving at the bank, she was immediately summoned to a meeting room where she found Michel Legrand, the branch manager, accompanied by two other senior bank officials. The atmosphere was charged with palpable tension. The room was elegant, with dark wood-paneled walls and a glass conference table in the center. "Sophie, please sit down," Michel said, indicating a chair in front of the table. Sophie obeyed, feeling her stomach churn. Michel began to speak, his voice firm yet courteous. "Sophie, we are here to discuss a very serious incident that occurred recently. Your behavior towards Mr. Henri Dupont was unacceptable and does not reflect the values of our bank. We need you to explain your actions." Sophie swallowed hard and began to speak, her voice trembling. I don't know what to say. I was just following security procedures. When I saw the check amount and realized it was a client I didn't recognize, I thought it best to verify." Michel interrupted her, his tone more severe. "Verifying is one thing, Sophie. The way you treated Mr. DuPont was clearly discriminatory. He is an important client and a respected businessman. Your actions were not just based on security procedures, but on personal prejudices. Sophie felt her face burn with shame. I'm very sorry. I didn't intend to offend anyone. One of the other administrators, a woman named Claire Fontaine, intervened. Sophie, being sorry is not enough. We need to ensure this does not happen again. We have decided that you will participate in a diversity and inclusion awareness program. Sophie was surprised and relieved at the same time. She had expected a harsher punishment, perhaps even losing her job. Of course, I will do whatever is necessary. Michelle continued, now with a softer tone. Additionally, Mr. DuPont has been invited to be the ambassador of this new initiative. He will help design the program and monitor its implementation. This will be an opportunity for you to learn and grow, Sophie. Sophie nodded, trying to absorb all the information. As the administrators continued discussing the program's details, she began reflecting on her actions and their impact. She felt a mix of shame and determination. She knew she had much to learn, but was willing to do whatever it took to change her attitudes. Henri DuPont eagerly accepted the role of ambassador for the awareness program. He felt responsible for using his experience and influence to promote significant changes. Immediately after the meeting with senior management, he began working on strategies to transform the bank's corporate culture. The first meeting as ambassador was with the human resources team, where he presented his ideas and plans. The conference room was packed, with employees from various hierarchical levels, all curious to hear what Henri had to say. The atmosphere was one of anticipation and, in some cases, skepticism. Good morning, everyone, Henri began with a confident smile. I'm here because I believe we can create a more inclusive and fair environment. My recent experience showed that we still have a long way to go, and I'm here to help guide this process. He presented a detailed plan that included diversity workshops, training sessions for all employees, and the creation of an inclusion committee to monitor progress. We need not only to educate, but also to create a space where everyone feels heard and respected. This is a collective effort. As he spoke, Henri noticed some closed expressions among the more conservative directors. He sensed the veiled resistance, but was prepared to face it. At the end of the presentation, one of the directors, Jacques Dubois, an older man with gray hair and a severe expression, stood up. Mr. DuPont, while we appreciate your initiative, we need to be sure these changes are really necessary. Our bank has always been a respectable institution. I don't see why we need such drastic measures. Henri remained calm. Mr. Dubois, experience shows that even respectable institutions can have flaws. The question is not whether we are good, but whether we can be better. Each of us has a role to play in ensuring everyone is treated with respect and dignity. Jacques huffed but did not respond. Henri knew that gaining the trust of those who resisted change would be a continuous challenge, but he was committed to the cause. Over the following months, Henri and his team faced several obstacles. Some board members continued to question the necessity of the measures, fearing that changes might affect the bank's traditional culture. However, Henri remained steadfast, supported by a growing base of employees who began to see the value of diversity and inclusion. While Henri DuPont worked tirelessly to transform the bank's culture, Sophie Martel began her journey of participating in the Diversity and Inclusion Awareness Program. Initially, she was reluctant. She felt humiliated for being forced to participate in something she believed was unnecessary. To Sophie, it seemed like an exaggerated punishment. The first sessions of the program were led by diversity experts who shared personal stories and experiences of discrimination. The environment was welcoming, with chairs arranged in a circle, promoting a sense of equality and openness. The walls were decorated with posters celebrating cultural diversity and inspiring stories of overcoming adversity. In the first session, Sophie was confronted with stories that shook her beliefs. One of the speakers was Amara, a Black woman working as a human rights lawyer. Amara began her talk by recounting the numerous times she had faced discrimination, from microaggressions to explicit racism. I was just a child when I realized my skin color made people treat me differently. At school, my classmates avoided sitting next to me, and teachers seemed to have lower expectations for me, said Amara, her voice filled with emotion. In my adult life, I've lost count of how many times I've been followed in stores or treated with suspicion in places where I should feel safe." As Amara spoke, Sophie felt a lump forming in her throat. The experiences shared by the speaker resonated with what Henri had likely felt that day at the bank. For the first time, Sophie began to question her own attitudes and prejudices. In another session, participants were divided into small groups to share their own experiences. Sophie found herself in a group with Karim, a Muslim man working in the bank's IT department, and Elena, a transgender woman who had recently joined the customer service team. Karim spoke about the prejudices he faced daily, from suspicious looks to ignorant comments about his religion. "People assume I'm dangerous or have extremist ideas just because of my faith. It hurts deeply because my religion teaches peace and respect." Elena, in turn, shared the difficulties of living her authentic identity. "My transition was a long and painful journey. I still face prejudice every day, but I've learned to love myself and be strong. I work here because I believe everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of who they are." Karim and Elena's stories had a profound impact on Sophie. She began to realize that her attitudes and prejudices were not just harmful but also ignorant. She felt a mix of shame and guilt for not having realized this sooner. As the weeks passed, Sophie began to participate more actively in the sessions. She asked questions, sought to understand others' experiences better, and started to reflect deeply on her own attitudes. Gradually, the awareness program began to transform her. While Sophie was on her journey of self-discovery and awareness, another story of change was unfolding at the bank. Marie, a young intern with big ambitions and a heart full of hope, was closely observing everything. Inspired by Henry's work and touched by the stories shared in the awareness sessions, Marie decided she too wanted to make a difference. Marie was a bright young woman with curly brown hair and eyes full of determination. She came from a humble family and had always dreamed of using her position to help those who, like her, struggled for opportunities. During one of the awareness sessions, she had an idea. After reflecting on the impact Henri was making, Marie approached him after one of the meetings. "Mr. Dupont, may I speak with you for a moment?" She was nervous but determined. "Of course, Marie. What do you need?" Henri responded with an encouraging smile. "I have an idea I'd like to share. I've been thinking a lot about how we can help more people have the opportunities I've had. I'd like to start a mentoring project for minority students. I think it could make a big difference and would be a way to carry forward the changes we're trying to implement here at the bank." Henri listened attentively and felt a surge of pride. Marie's determination and passion reminded him of himself when he was starting out. "Marie, that's a fantastic idea. I'd love to help. We can work together to develop this project and ensure it has the impact you desire." With Henry's support, Marie began to structure the mentoring project. They organized meetings with local schools and charities to identify students who could benefit from the program. Henri used his influence and contacts to attract other business people and professionals to serve as mentors. The first few months were challenging. There was resistance from some sectors of the bank, and Marie struggled to balance her responsibilities as an intern with implementing the project. However, with Henry's guidance and the growing support of the staff, the program began to take shape. Marie and Henri organized a launch event for the project in the bank's main hall. The room was decorated with colorful banners, and there was an atmosphere of excitement. Students, mentors, and bank employees gathered to celebrate the start of a new journey. Henri gave an inspiring speech. "This project is more than just mentorship. It's about providing opportunities, opening doors, and building a future where everyone has a chance to reach their potential. I'm proud to be part of this and can't wait to see the results we'll achieve together." Marie felt a wave of pride and gratitude as Henri spoke. She knew she was on the right path and that, with effort and dedication, they could make a real difference in many people's lives. Henri Dupont's initiative began to significantly transform the bank's internal culture. Initially, the change was subtle, almost imperceptible, but as the awareness and inclusion programs advanced, the effects became increasingly visible. Henri devoted himself intensely to his role as ambassador, promoting workshops, lectures, and activities that encouraged employees to get involved and reflect on their own prejudices. The bank's conference room, once a space reserved only for business meetings, now transformed into a vibrant and welcoming environment where discussions on diversity and inclusion regularly took place. The walls were adorned with photos and stories of employees from diverse backgrounds, celebrating the diversity and talent of each individual. During one of these sessions, Henri invited a famous human rights activist, Jean-Pierre Marchand, to speak about the importance of inclusion in the workplace. The room was packed with employees from all areas of the bank eager to hear his words. Jean-Pierre was a charismatic man with a commanding presence and an incredible ability to engage his audience. We must remember that inclusion is not just a moral issue, but an economic imperative. A diverse and inclusive work environment is more innovative, more productive, and more attractive to top talent, said Jean-Pierre, as the audience nodded in agreement. But change begins with each of us, with the willingness to listen, learn, and grow. Henri observed the employees' reactions and felt growing satisfaction. He knew that cultural transformation was a slow process, but the signs of progress were undeniable. More employees began to support the cause, actively participating in the initiatives and sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. The change did not go unnoticed by the media. Newspapers and magazines began to highlight Henri's work and the transformation occurring at the bank. Interviews and articles praised Henri's courage and determination in confronting prejudice and promoting inclusion. The bank began to be seen as an example of social progress, and Henri's work was widely recognized. One afternoon, Henri received an unexpected call. It was from a reporter at France's leading economic newspaper, requesting an exclusive interview. Henri accepted, seeing it as an opportunity to broaden the impact of his initiatives. The interview was set for an elegant cafe in the heart of Paris. The ambience was sophisticated, with marble tables, velvet chairs, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Henri arrived punctually and was greeted by the reporter, a young and enthusiastic man named Louis Bernard. "Mr. Dupont, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've been following your work and am eager to learn more about your motivations and the challenges you've faced," said Louis with a warm smile. Henri nodded, smiling back. "Thank you, Louis. I'm happy to have the opportunity to share our journey. I believe it's important to show that change is possible, even in the most traditional institutions." The interview lasted almost 2 hours, during which Henri spoke about his experiences, the challenges he faced, and the victories he achieved. He highlighted the importance of employee and board support, as well as the need for persistence and resilience. The article was published in the Sunday edition with the headline, "Henri Dupont, the entrepreneur who transformed a traditional bank's corporate culture." The piece detailed Henri's work and the bank's evolution, praising his vision and leadership. This exposure attracted even more attention and support for Henri's initiatives. Other banks and companies began to seek his guidance, wanting to replicate his success. Henri felt he was on the right path, but knew there was still much to be done. Sophie Martel was undergoing a profound personal transformation. The Diversity and Inclusion Awareness Program had forced her to confront her prejudices and question her attitudes. Initially, she had resisted, but the stories and experiences she heard made her reflect deeply. After months of participating in the program, Sophie decided it was time to act. She felt the need to apologize to Henri Dupont, not just to ease her own guilt, but to demonstrate that she was truly committed to change. One day, after a particularly emotional session in the program, Sophie mustered the courage to seek out Henri in his office. She knew he would be busy, but hoped he could spare a few minutes of his time. When she arrived at Henri's office, she was greeted by Jules, Henri's personal assistant. "Mr. Dupont is in a meeting right now, but I can let him know you're here," Jules said with a welcoming smile. "Thank you, Jules. I'll wait here," Sophie replied, sitting down in a chair in the reception area. As she waited, Sophie couldn't help but feel anxious. Her hands were sweating, and her heart was racing. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the door to Henri's office opened, and he appeared, talking animatedly with a colleague. "Mr. Dupont, Sophie is here to see you," Jules said. Henri looked in Sophie's direction and, though surprised, offered a kind smile. "Sophie, of course, come in. What can I do for you?" Sophie entered the office, her legs trembling. The space was elegant and welcoming, with a large window offering a stunning view of the city. Henri indicated a chair and sat at his desk, waiting patiently. Mr. DuPont, I wanted to apologize, Sophie began, her voice trembling. I acted unacceptably when you came to the bank. Since then, I've participated in the awareness program and learned a lot about my prejudices. I'm very sorry for what I did. Henri observed her attentively, perceiving the sincerity in her words. Sophie, thank you for coming here and apologizing. It shows you're truly committed to change. We all make mistakes, but the important thing is to learn from them and grow. Sophie felt immediate relief. Thank you, Mr. DuPont. I'd like to do more to help. If there's anything I can do to contribute to the inclusion initiatives, I'm available. Henri smiled, seeing an opportunity to further strengthen the changes he was promoting. Sophie, I'm glad to hear that. We need committed people like you. I'd like you to actively participate in the inclusion initiatives, perhaps starting with coordinating some of the workshops. Sophie nodded, feeling grateful for the opportunity. It would be an honor. Thank you for believing in me. With that, Sophie began working alongside Henri, helping organize events and workshops, sharing her own experiences and learnings. Her personal transformation started to inspire other employees, showing that it was possible to change and grow. The bank decided to organize a gala event to celebrate the significant changes implemented. The occasion would be an opportunity to recognize Henri DuPont's work and all those who contributed to transforming the institution's corporate culture. The anticipation for the night was high, and everyone involved was eager to see the results of months of effort. Preparation for the event was meticulous. The chosen banquet hall was one of the most prestigious in Paris, with crystal chandeliers, walls adorned with carved wood panels, and a ceiling painted with classical scenes. The tables were decorated with elegant flower arrangements and silver cutlery, creating an atmosphere of sophistication and celebration. On the night of the event, guests began to arrive, dressed in their finest attire. Men in tuxedos and women in elegant gowns circulated the hall, while waiters served champagne and canapés. The atmosphere was one of celebration and pride. Henri DuPont arrived, accompanied by Jules and other members of his team. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo and looked confident and serene. As he walked through the hall, he received greetings and expressions of gratitude from colleagues and friends. The highlight of the evening was Henri's speech. He climbed onto the illuminated stage and looked at the sea of attentive faces. He took a moment to absorb the magnitude of the event before beginning to speak. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here tonight to celebrate the progress we've made together. When we started this journey, we knew it would be challenging, but we also knew it was necessary. Today, I see the fruits of our labor and feel immense pride for each of you. Henri continued, highlighting the initiatives implemented and the results achieved. He spoke about the positive impact of the awareness sessions, the creation of the inclusion committee, and the enthusiastic response from employees. This is not the end, but just the beginning. We will continue to work together to ensure our bank is an example of diversity, inclusion, and respect. After Henri's speech, Sophie Martel was invited to the stage. Her personal transformation and involvement in the inclusion initiatives were an inspiring testament for everyone. When I started this journey, I didn't know how much I would learn and grow, Sophie said, emotionally. I faced my own prejudices, and thanks to the support and guidance of many here, I'm changing for the better. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to redeem myself and be part of this transformation. The applause was warm and prolonged. Sophie felt a wave of emotions as she descended from the stage, grateful for the support and acceptance she had received. Marie, the young intern who started the mentorship project, was also recognized. Henri called her to the stage, highlighting her initiative and dedication. Marie had the courage to propose something new and the determination to make it happen. Her mentorship project is already making a difference in many students' lives, and we're proud to have her on our team. Marie, visibly moved, thanked for the recognition. This project is a dream coming true thanks to everyone's support here. I will continue to work hard to ensure more young people have the opportunities they deserve. The night culminated with the bank's board making an important announcement. Philippe Durant, the CEO, climbed onto the stage and took the microphone. In recognition of Henri DuPont's extraordinary work and the positive impact of his initiatives, I'm proud to announce that the bank will adopt a new zero-tolerance policy against discrimination inspired by his actions. The applause was deafening. Henri felt a wave of satisfaction and gratitude. Philippe continued with a warm smile. And, as a way to give back for what he has done for us, we want to invite Henri Dupont to join our board. His vision and leadership are indispensable for our future. Henri accepted the invitation, emotional. The night ended with a sense of hope and optimism. The challenges had been many, but the progress achieved was proof that change is possible when there is determination and commitment. As the gala night drew to a close, a sense of accomplishment permeated the hall. The guests continued to chat animatedly, sharing stories of transformation and expressing optimism about the bank's future. It was clear that Henri Dupont's initiatives had left an indelible mark on the institution. Philippe Durand, visibly moved, took the microphone once more to make the final announcement of the evening. Before we end this memorable event, I'd like to share an important revelation. Throughout this time, Henri Dupont, in addition to being a successful entrepreneur and our inclusion ambassador, was also one of the bank's main shareholders. A murmur of surprise ran through the room. Many did not know this information, and the revelation added a new layer of admiration and respect for Henri. Philippe continued with a solemn tone. Henri used his position to test the true culture of our institution and showed us areas where we need to improve. His intervention was a valuable lesson for all of us. Henri, surprised by the public revelation of his role as a shareholder, climbed onto the stage again. It was never my intention to use my position to cause embarrassment. My goal was always to promote significant change. I'm deeply honored by the recognition and will continue to work to ensure our bank is an example of inclusion and respect. Philippe smiled and made the final announcement. To conclude, I'd like to inform you that, as a result of Henri's initiatives, we have decided to implement a new zero-tolerance policy against discrimination. Additionally, those board members who resisted the changes will be replaced, while Henri and his allies emerge as the new leaders, committed to a more inclusive and just future. The applause was deafening, and the room was filled with emotion. Henri felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had managed not only to transform the bank's culture, but also to inspire changes that would have a lasting impact. The night ended with a sense of hope and renewal. Henri, now a board member, looked to the future with confidence. He knew there were still challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them, with the support of a dedicated team and a clear vision of a more just and inclusive world. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and watch the next story, which is incredibly moving.